The Campbell Youth Commission, the Cupertino Youth Activity Board, and the Saratoga Youth Commission present Pizza and Politics, a political event for teens by teens. Today's program features a roundtable discussion from the mayors of Campbell and Cupertino and the Vice Mayor of Saratoga, a Youth and Teen Commissioners Roundtable, and a special teen debate segment. And now, Pizza and Politics.
Hi everyone. On behalf of Campbell, Saratoga, and Cupertino, welcome to Pizza and Politics 2024. My name's Yasmin, and I'm a 10th grader at Westmont High School. I'm also a member of the Campbell Youth Commission. This year, we have a total of 15 members ranging from 8th to 12th grade and a combination of 6 returning commissioners and 9 new commissioners. We advise our City Council on matters relating to youth and teens and cultivate events centered around our goals for teen involvement in our community. This year, our main goals revolve around physical and mental health, career and education, and community. We look forward to hosting fun and educational events this year to get our fellow Campbell teens involved. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Daniel Chu and I'm a senior at Bellarmine College Preparatory as well as the president of the Cupertino Youth Activity Board. The Cupertino Youth Activity Board is a group of 13 students that works towards planning and hosting events regarding mental health awareness for students around the city.
Hello everybody, I'm Zara Fugman, a freshman at Notre Dame High School and a member of the Saratoga Youth Commission. We're a group of 11 students who act as liaisons between the City Council and Saratoga Youth. We engage and support teens in our local community through fun, educational events and projects, and our themes this year are connection and wellness. Next, I'd like to introduce our 2024 Pizza and Politics moderator, Shivika Biswari. Shivika is a sophomore at Monte Vista High School and the chair of the Cupertino Teen Commission. Now, let's give a warm round of applause for our moderator.
Thank you. As Zara just said, my name is Shivika Biswari, and I am happy to be your moderator for this evening's event. Pizza and Politics is a political forum for teens by teens. It began in 2012 in the hopes of educating teens on political processes and also to provide opportunities for teens to be more involved in their community. The event's success has shown the positive impact of engaging youth in politics and received a Helen Putnam Award of Excellence in 2021. Although many of you are not able to vote yet, you are already developing the practices of responsible voters, and you should be applauded for taking the time to learn more about the candidates and issues that will be voted upon on Election Day. This year's Pizza and Politics Forum is hosted by the Campbell Youth Commission, Cupertino Youth Activity Board, and the Saratoga Youth Commission. Tonight's event will include 3 segments centering on issues that are relevant to teens in this election cycle. We will take breaks between each of our segments, which are scheduled at 7:05 p.m. and 7:45 p.m. We ask that our audience please refrain from getting up during our segments and wait for the next break if you can. Before we begin, I would also like to discuss some ground rules for tonight. Audience members, you are part of this discussion too. If you have any questions, please raise your hand, and one of our floor managers will come to you and hand you your mic when it is your turn. Please stand up when it is your turn to ask your question. We will try to take as many questions as we can. Given that this is a forum geared towards youth, we will be taking questions from youth before other audience members. To our mayors, we will have a timer sitting in the front row that will help you navigate time. When you see the 30-second warning sign go up, please be mindful of your time. Furthermore, if you see the time sign go up, we kindly ask that you wrap up your answer at that point. For our first panel, we will have the mayors of Campbell, Cupertino, and Saratoga discuss issues affecting youth in their communities. Our speakers tonight include Campbell Mayor Susan Landry, Cupertino Mayor Sheila Mohan, and Saratoga Vice Mayor Bilal Aftab. Mayor Susan M. Landry was elected to the Campbell City Council in 2016 and has served as mayor in 2020 and began serving as mayor again since December 2023. Mayor Landry holds a Bachelor's of Science in Landscape Architecture from Cal Poly Pomona and is a member of the state's Landscape Architects Technical Committee. She also owns a small landscape architecture firm called Environmental Edges. Mayor Sheila Mohan, a longtime Cupertino resident and seasoned finance executive, joined the Cupertino City Council in December 2022 and began her mayoral term in December 2023. She's contributed to Cupertino as a Fine Arts Commissioner, Library Commissioner, and Treasurer for a successful library funding ballot measure. As Mayor of Cupertino, she works to enhance fiscal transparency, preserve community integrity, improve safety, and support housing and transit for seniors, teachers, service workers, and families, all while focusing on environmental sustainability. Vice Mayor Bansal of Tab was selected to the Saratoga City Council in November 2022. Prior to that, he served on Saratoga's Traffic Safety Commission for 5 years and was also vice chair of the Trans-Bay Joint Powers Authority Citizens Advisory Committee, where he provided oversight and influence on the Bay Area's long-term public transit plans. Vice Mayor of Tab earned his degree in Business Administration at the University of California, Berkeley. Thank you all for joining us tonight. To start, I will ask the first question, and then we will move to audience questions, where we will take questions from our teen attendees first. We'd like to remind each mayor that you will have 90 seconds to respond to each question. Our timer is sitting in the front row, and we'll raise a sign to let you know how much time you have remaining. And we will also raise the time sign if you have reached your 90 seconds. For your first question of the night, many of our audience members are not old enough to vote yet. How else can they become more involved in local government, and what impact can they have on their communities? Let's have Mayor Landry go first, followed by Mayor Mohan, and then Vice Mayor of Tab.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. I think what you're doing here tonight is a big step towards getting involved. Being on the Youth Commission is also a way to be engaged. I encourage people to participate in local government. You can sign up. Most cities have a sign up where you can say, get information about what's going on. You can certainly attend our council meetings, our Parks and Rec Commission meetings. And I'll bring up something that just happened in the last couple weeks. We're working on our overall, for the whole city, Parks Master Plan. And one of the first community meetings, 2 young gentlemen who were, I think, in 10th grade, came to talk about the lack of our maintenance at the skateboard park. And they talked a lot about how beneficial it was to have the skateboard park and how it's great for their age, but how dilapidated it was. So as that moved forward through the process, they came to council and they talked again about the skateboard park. And at the next council meeting, we gave them allocation of money out of what we got from the ARPA funds. So by them coming and speaking, we're now improving our skateboard park. So every little person, any person can help.
Thank you. We'll have Mayor Mohan next. Could you repeat the question? Yes. How can teens become involved in local government, and what impact can they have on their communities?
Okay. First of all, I'm very proud of Cupertino's Teen Commission. And I just want to mention that when we had interviews for just a couple of Teen Commission openings this past, just a few months ago, we got an overwhelming response. And that was a great indication of how energetic and enthusiastic our teen population in the city, and I'm sure neighboring cities as well. So there's a lot of things that teens, young people can do. They cannot vote, but besides that, they can do a ton of things. And let me start out by saying that there are so many issues that concern the city that are associated with teens and the quality of life that we want to enhance for teenagers and young people in our community. Recently, we got the teens to come to City Council and talk about bike lanes, school safety. These are vital issues for young people in our community, and we listened to them, and really the input that the young people provided played a big part in the final decision that the City Council made. So grateful to the young people for making sure that their voices are heard.
Thank you so much. Vice Mayor Bilal Leftab.
Thank you for the question, and also shout out to the Saratoga Youth Commission. Thank you to Cupertino for hosting us here. Great question in terms of how young people can have an impact. I'll go on a couple of, I think it depends on how you define impact too, but to me, there's no question that you can have one. Like Mayor Landry mentioned, you can definitely come to a city council meeting or to a commission meeting. The one thing I'll say, attendance at these meetings tend to be very light. And so if you want to speak in, we have people who show up to council meetings and they comment on every single item. And when you have so few people there, their opinion gets heard. Right. And so that's part of our process in democracy is we have public comment, which means anybody can speak on any issue, which is an incredible thing. Even though you can't vote, you can be part of campaigns. Right. A critical part of getting elected is getting votes. And the way you get votes is people have to know who you are, know what you stand for, and you have to convince them that you're worth voting for. The same is true, though, for any ballot measure or anything that's on a ballot in general. And so that's a really great opportunity for you to show up to people's front door, talk to them, and participate in the political process. And the last thing I'll say is, you can also be part of a nonprofit, right? There are great organizations that, a soup kitchen that help with food insecurity. You can deliver food to people's homes. There are a number of ways in which you can have a really positive impact on the community around you.
Thank you so much for all of your responses. It was
Can I give one more example really quickly?
Yes, of course.
I'm sorry to go over time, but I was on the Traffic Safety Commission, like Shivika mentioned, for about 5 years, and one thing we would do is residents come to you with, hey, there's this problem at this intersection, right? And I did this exercise with a group of high schoolers this past Sunday where I took an example of that came to in front of the Traffic Safety Commission and said, what would you do here? This group of 10 high schoolers came up with more ideas than the Traffic Safety Commission. So never think for a second that you can't be impactful and make a difference.
Thank you so much for all of your responses. It was great to see how teens can also have a big impact on our community in some way. So now we will be taking questions from our audience members. Please raise your hand and stand up when you ask the question.
Hi, thank you all for being here. My question is, what is the most pressing issue in your city currently, and what are you doing to resolve it?
Thank you for your question. Let's have Mayor Sheila Mohan go first, then Vice Mayor Bilal Leftab, and then Mayor Susan Landry.
Okay, thank you for that question. The most pressing question, and I want to preface it by saying not the most pressing question of the day, but in terms of the vision that we have for the city. And the most pressing question is how to maintain an enhanced quality of life for all community residents, keeping in mind that change will come. Change is not always welcome, but it is inevitable. And so the challenge is really how are we going to deal with all the changes that will come our way, keeping in mind that the quality of life is the most important ingredient in the life of a community.
I would say two answers, housing and climate. On the housing front, I would say, the median cost of a home in Saratoga is $4 million. And so it's very hard for young families to actually move to the area. And so what that also means, you have declining school enrollment. And so I know I grew up around here, and most of my friends don't live in the South Bay anymore because it's so expensive. And so how do we think about change in our cities while being welcoming, right? And recognizing that's going to mean a bit of change to the city that we've gotten used to from a visual perspective and aesthetics perspective. I think one issue of our time is climate. I think we've just gotten really lucky. Like we in Saratoga, for example, have a number of homes in the hillsides. And we're a really, really, really bad storm away from those some roads collapsing, or things like that. We've had this. We've had trees fall down and block roads, take down power lines. There's no reason that can't be way worse. In 2020, the entire city was put on evacuation notice because of wildfires. It smells like wildfires outside, and so I think we have to be really mindful of that. And that's also a global issue, not just a local one. But we have to do what we can to prepare for that.
And then Mayor Landry.
Yes, thank you for the question. We have a lot of pressing issues, housing, climate. We're actually working on our climate action plan. But right now, our biggest problem is our budget. We have $100 million expenses, but we only had $95 million in projected income. Part of the problem was we lost some large sales tax generator businesses in the city, plus everything else has gone down in revenue. So how do you come up with a $5 million answer? So we polled the community. We got a 66% favorable rating on putting a sales tax measure on the ballot, a half-cent sales tax, to raise up to $7 million per year. And so we hope that this ballot measure will pass, but it's really up to our community to make that decision. The council is not supporting the measure one way or the other. We're just saying we have this budget deficit. Here's a good way to try to solve the problem. So that's on our election for next Tuesday. Climate is a big issue for us, and like I said, we're working on our climate action plan. We just passed a nitrous oxide gas emission standard. There was something called REACH codes that came up a while ago to try to prevent gas stoves. There was a lawsuit. We couldn't do that anymore, so instead we basically set a limit on gas emissions, and so you end up not being able to have a stove because of the NOx limits that we've put out.
Thank you for your responses. Are there any other audience questions?
Hello. This is a lot more specific than the previous question. I hope that's okay. I wanted to bring up, so currently there's been a lot of discourse around the discussion of LGBTQ topics in schools, especially in the Cupertino Union School District. And many parents think that this is not an appropriate subject to bring up in schools, while others argue that discussion of queer topics is integral to creating a welcoming community in schools. And I was just wondering if we could hear about your opinion on this subject, as well as what you think schools, teachers, and students as a whole community should do going forward.
Okay, thank you for your question. We will have Vice Mayor Bilal Aftap go first, then Mayor Landry, and then Mayor Mohan.
Thank you for the question. I think it's a really important one that the community is talking through right now. Just on a high level, my perspective is I think we need more diverse voices always. I think when I take a look at how I was raised and the stories that I see now in media for someone who looks like me, has my name, my faith, my background, whatever it might be, I didn't see or hear stories like that before. And I think those perspectives are really valuable. And so whether it's a queer background or a person of color's background, I think a variety of voices are integral to making our community feel safe and to giving our children, the opportunity to feel like they belong. I also understand some of the parents, where just like they care about the quality of school care, they care about how a thing is presented. Parents tend to be very, protective of their children, as they should be. But I think there's a question of, I understand maybe it's something that a parent hasn't been used to. And so I think that's why I think overall as a community having this conversation is a net positive thing, as hard as those conversations are, because it's a chance for everybody to learn. And I hope it continues to, I hope it is a positive outcome for us.
Thank you. Mayor Landry?
I'll basically divulge my age a little bit here. When I was in high school in the 70s, this was not a topic that you discussed. And I had a friend who was gay. Sorry, I get a little emotional. And he was shunned. And people wouldn't talk to him. They made fun of him. And it was really sad. And as I got older and society started changing, it became a little bit more of an acceptable topic, but it took years to have this conversation. And I'm really glad that we're having the conversation now, because for everybody that I have talked to, in fact, my landlord and his husband have 2 young daughters. He tells a story how when he came out to his father, he kicked him out of the house and he was homeless for a period of time because his father grew up in Iran, and this was not something that was acceptable at all. And he told me about all the challenges he had just trying to be accepted. And again, like I said, in the 70s, it wasn't even a topic of discussion. I think it's great that it is actually being discussed. And I understand there's parents' concern, but a lot of it is a fear that is not necessarily justified. And if we don't have the conversation and we don't start talking about it, there are too many people that just don't feel like they're being heard. And they have their own personal feelings, and we need to acknowledge that. We need to say, yes, that doesn't have to be, shouldn't be shunned. It shouldn't be a forbidden topic. It does need to be brought up, and it does need to be discussed.
Thank you for your response, Mayor Landry. It means a lot. Mayor Mohan?
Yeah, I agree with Mayor Landry that it's a topic that must be discussed. I hesitate to tell teachers how they should discuss it, and I leave it up to them. They are the experts. But high school is a tough phase of one's life. You feel discriminated or isolated, or have the feeling that you don't belong in so many different ways. Sexual orientation, income levels, race, ethnic group, and so on. And I think it's important for people who have a voice, like elected officials like us, to make sure that we send the message out that every community must be an inclusive community. And we are very lucky in many ways. We're in the Bay Area, where some of these deep-seated prejudices are less apparent. And so I think it's important that we make sure that all groups are welcomed, and that we, those of us in power, take every step that we can to make sure that this inclusivity is displayed, it's encouraged, and it's ingrained in all of us and in the community.
Thank you so much again for all of your responses. If there are any questions left to take, please raise your hand.
I first want to say thank you so much to all of you for being here to answer questions. My question is specifically pertaining to public transportation. I want to know from you guys, what are some cost-effective ways you believe public transportation can be both facilitated and incentivized for teens like me?
That's a great question. Let's go in the order of Mayor Landry, Mayor Mohan, and then Vice Mayor Balalov.
Good, challenging question, by the way. Public transportation is expensive. I don't know if most of you know, but a bus does not have the ridership to pay for the expenses for that bus line. So a lot of it is subsidized by federal grants or local. We had Measure B that did pay for some transportation. Some of the things that we've been discussing on a high level is, for instance, like the seniors, we had a ride program, and we allocated so much money each month to allow seniors to have access to the ride vehicle, which falls into the public transportation category. Unfortunately, Measure B did not give us enough money, and a lot of the money has been taken for the BART and the BART extension. So we're down to 2 bus lines. We lost our shuttle. We had a shuttle from Los Gatos to Campbell. That was a smaller bus. That is one way to make things a little more cost effective, is to basically look at the size of buses that they're buying. I was on VTA board, and it was funny. One of the topics that first came up was the cost of how buses are not efficient and how much money they were losing. And the next thing they said is, we're going to buy these big, gigantic, articulated buses where the 2 cars. And I was like, well, wait a minute. That doesn't sound very cost effective. If the bus isn't full, why are you making them bigger? Why don't we go back to the smaller buses?
Yep, transportation continues to be an ongoing challenge for all of us. There's just not enough people riding buses, and the buses don't take us to where we want to go. And so this is something that the city's been debating for years. We have some solutions, and the city of Cupertino is particularly proud of the SV Hopper, which is sort of like a Uber for people who can just who have to have an app, call in for transportation, and doesn't come directly to your house, but it does come to the main crossings. The SV Hopper is particularly good because we started it in Cupertino. We extended it to Santa Clara, city of Santa Clara, and now we are working with the city of Sunnyvale. And if that comes to pass, then we have a great sort of micro-transit system going all the way from Sunnyvale to Santa Clara. So I also wanted to make a plug for the RIDE program, which is a county-funded program, and I take pride in saying that I'm a volunteer driver for the RIDE program, and it's great as the city gets older. The community is getting older. It makes sense to have something other than one car, one driver, one passenger. So that's the goal we are striving for, and I hope it happens in my lifetime.
Also, as you're asking questions, please say your name. I might have missed it, but what was your name? If you, Modest. Great question. At the simplest, level, it's about convenience and affordability, right? For someone like you or anyone to want to take public transit, and it's neither of those things right now, right? Or rather, it could be affordable, but it's just not convenient. I think there's a question as to why, and that's a whole different. That's like there are classes taught at universities about that in California. I do think that transit has become really expensive to build in general in the state of California, and that's for a variety of reasons. The processes we employ to build public transit, in terms of like CEQA and all things with very good intentions, have led to very long timelines and the expenses being very, very high. So, the cost of building a high-speed train in California is significantly higher than in other parts of the world. Some of that's with the reason, but some of that isn't, right? So there's some in between there. I do think what I observe at least is some changing habits, right? Like I feel like amongst younger folks that I know, they're willing to drive less and want to take more public transit. It's more environmentally friendly. There are all sorts of impacts like that. And I think it's something that we as leadership, as elected officials, need to do a better job of. Fun fact, BART was originally supposed to come down to Saratoga. But a lot of councils over time made sure that didn't happen because they didn't want public transit coming down here. So part of this is like a willingness and a desire to do that. And that's where if you have a voice, that can be very powerful.
Thank you for your responses. Those were great answers. Does anyone else have questions for the mayors?
I want there was like you mentioned the Cupertino's budget problem. I want to know like what's the main income of the government of like Cupertino and Saratoga?
Okay, then we will have Mayor Mohan go first, and then Vice Mayor of Saratoga.
Yes, we have an ongoing budget problem. I'm speaking for Cupertino. So the main sources of revenue for a city, any city, are sales tax, property tax. We get funding from the state government. We get some funding from the federal government. And we have some grants here and there. But the main sources are really sales tax and and property tax. Was that your question, or did you want me to go into details about the budget?
Yeah, just to add on, so different cities have different sources of income, if you think about it, and that income mix is different based off of the city. So I'm the vice mayor here in Saratoga, and we are a unique city in that probably about 65%, so a very high majority of our revenue comes from property tax. What is that? That's when you buy a home, you basically have to pay a little bit over 1% of the property value every year. Most of that actually goes to firefighters and the school district. We as a city get about a little under 7 cents on the dollar for your property tax. And then sort of the rest is filled by, like Mayor Rohan mentioned, other state and federal sources, things like measures, like Measure B and other things, or other gasoline taxes and things like that go directly into a city. And then the big variable in certain cities is sales tax. And so if you have a really vibrant commercial district and vibrant downtown like you have in Campbell and in Cupertino, you get a lot of sales tax. In Saratoga, Saratoga is very intentionally a residential community with about less than 1%. About 1% of our land is commercial, so we get very little in terms of sales tax, about $1 million a year. And that's on a $27 million budget. So it's a relatively small amount, but that is significantly higher in some other cities.
So like the other two mayors and vice mayor said, our city has 3 revenue generators. Sales tax is the highest, and that's why we're putting this measure on the ballot to increase it by 0.5%. We have property tax. One of the problems that we have in Campbell is there's this thing called Prop 13 that passed here in the state quite a long time ago. And for instance, if you buy a new house now, you're paying $2 million, your property tax could be $25,000, $30,000 a year. But if you are under Prop 13 and haven't improved your home and you've been living there for 40 years, you're paying $1,000 or $2,000 instead of $25,000. So it affects us a lot because we do have a lot of older generations still living in their homes for 40 or 50 years. So we don't have as much of property tax as, for instance, we're $4 million houses. Ours may be $2 million. So sales tax is our highest generator. We also do hotel tax. It's called TOT, Transit Occupancy Tax, which we did get a lot of income until COVID. And when nobody was staying in hotels, that income dropped drastically. It's slowly coming back, but people have less amount that they pay for the hotel room, so the tax that we get is a lot lower. But so our main ones is the sales tax, and then the second is property tax. We do get funds. We did have a bond measure in 2018 for $50 million to build a new police and a new library building. So there are bond measures that we can use.
There are also fees and stuff that we charge, like if you apply for a permit for doing something on your house, or you want to book the benches at the park, you pay $15. There's also other sources of revenue, but those are relatively small.
It was great to hear your thoughts on this. So now we are coming close to the end of this section tonight. This will be your last question and your closing statement. What question do you wish you had been asked today, and why? We will go in the order of Mayor Landry, Mayor Mohan, and then Vice Mayor of Saratoga.
I was really looking for more questions about the climate and sustainability. I recently had our State of the City address, and sustainability was our theme. And we talked a lot about what Campbell is doing to make things more sustainable. Like I said, we passed this nitrous oxide gas emission standard. We're right now doing data collection towards the climate action plan to then look at the implementation later. We have the Riparian Creek corridor, Los Gatos Creek, the big environmental area and a lot of nature there. My big thing is how do we preserve that with the pressure that's the surrounding development. So I was really looking for some more questions. I had some prepared answers about sustainability.
So one of the biggest challenges we face is the fact that young people like you cannot afford to buy a house or live in Cupertino. So my question would have been, what does it take for young people to come back to live in Cupertino, come and live in Cupertino? So that's the question I was looking for. And just to give you some background information, the state has asked us to build 4,588 units over a 6-year period. And our goal is to make sure that these units are at all levels, are available for young people, for people who work in stores, teachers, firefighters. So far, the city is mainly single-family dwellings, and we just went to a ribbon cutting today, and a house, a townhouse, was listed at 3.2 million, which is unaffordable for anyone. So the real challenge is to build affordable housing available to all income levels.
The question I was hoping to get, but also really scared to get, was what are you as elected officials at the city level doing about mental health, especially for kids and for high schoolers in general? And that's because I don't feel like I have a great answer. I ask folks at the school board this all the time, but I know mental health is something that's really important to me in my life and something I care a lot about. I encourage you all to. A lot of you are on your city's representative commission, and the one thing I would say is feel free to be outspoken with your city council about what you think we can and should be doing. And it doesn't have to be in front of everybody. You can send us an email. You can ask us for coffee one-on-one, whatever you want to do. But tell us what you think we can be doing to help all of you on mental health, because we know it's a stressful time, it's competitive. All these things I grew up in the area too. I have a sense of that. But let us know what we can be doing.
Thank you, Mayor Landry, Mayor Mohan, and Vice Mayor of Tab for this evening. We will now take a short break and come soon for our next segment, the Teen Commissioner Roundtable. Thank you so much.
Things could be stranger, but I don't know how. I'm going through changes now. Could spend a lifetime trying to figure it out. I'm going through changes now that have just begun under a purple sun. There's many reasons we are what we've become. I'm going through changes now. Things could be different, but I don't know how. I'm going through changes, through all of the strangeness. I'm going through changes now.
Hey world, I have a quick message. It's about safe driving. All right, let's go. Anytime you're driving, have the seatbelt buckled tight. Both hands on the wheel and your phone out of sight. When not in your hand, trying to text somebody back. Because if you do, your car might get smacked. The moral of the story, just put your phone down. The people on the road will stay safe and sound. Put your phone down, put your phone down. People on the road will stay safe and sound. Yeah.
For our second roundtable, we'll have the teen commissions of Campbell, Cupertino, and Saratoga discuss their experiences serving on the Youth Commission. Our speakers tonight include Sophie Tuan, Campbell Youth Commission Chair, Mason Johnson, Campbell Youth Commission, Raina Shaw, former Cupertino Teen Commission Chair, Joyce Chung, former Cupertino Teen Commission Vice Chair, Bianca Suitioso, Saratoga Youth Commission Vice Chair, and Sia Chowdhury, Saratoga Youth Commission. Thank you all for joining us tonight. To start, I'm going to ask the first question to our youth commissioners, and then we will move on to audience questions, where we will take questions from our teen attendees first. After the first question, Ms. Tuan will alternate answering questions with Mr. Johnson on behalf of Campbell. Ms. Shaw and Ms. Chung will alternate answering questions on behalf of Cupertino, and Ms. Sucioso and Ms. Chowdhury will alternate answering questions on behalf of Saratoga. We would also like to remind each teen commissioner that you will have 90 seconds to respond to each question. Our timer is sitting in the front row and will raise a sign to let you know how much time you have remaining, and will raise the time sign if you have reached your 90 seconds. For all the commissioners, what made you want to be a part of Teen Commission?
So I wanted to join Youth Commission in order to be involved with my Campbell community in a way that would actually make a difference. And through Campbell Youth Commission, I've been able to plan and host events from the birth of the idea and seeing that my idea has been brought to life and how many people enjoy it. Some of the goals that I had was in order to create a tight-knit community throughout Campbell with teens and older generations. In addition, I wanted to help teens learn more about their local government, as well as providing them with more opportunities for volunteerism and internships.
I think that the reason I joined the Campbell Youth Commission was to be able to make an impact in my community. I think being able to just do your part and being able to help other people in your city is a really just amazing thing to do, and I wanted to make that kind of impact on a more, I already did a more kind of a personal level with my friends and going and volunteering and stuff, and I kind of wanted to do it on a more just a wider scale that I could affect more people and help more people, and I think that what was really motivated me, just being able to help the community as a whole.
I wanted to join the Teen Commission because I always felt like it was the adults who got to really make change in our community. For example, you only can vote when you're 18, or if you want to run for council, obviously you have to be much older. And when I learned about the Teen Commission, I saw that there were actually a place for teens to make change. So when I heard about it, I immediately applied because me and all the other teen commissioners here, we all want to actually make a change and give the teens perspective. So it was kind of giving me a place and other teens to have a seat at the table and be part of discussions that normally only adults can discuss in.
I think personally for me, like most stories, begins with a very ambitious 5-year-old me who wanted to steal or take over the job of our block leader, Mrs. Hillary. Mrs. Hillary is our Cupertino block leader, and she does an amazing job at organizing everything and bonding the community together. And ever since I was little, I also wanted to do the exact same thing she did, but at a larger scale, which is our city. And I remember the freshman year, the summer before freshman year, I told her, like, Mrs. Hillary, so when are you gonna retire? Like, mind you, she is an old lady. She's like, I think, okay, I won't say her age, but I always wanted to be a block leader, and she actually recommended becoming a Cupertino teen commissioner, and I guess that's why I'm here today.
I applied for the Saratoga Youth Commission because at the time I was really interested in pursuing a career in government, and obviously the government works really closely with the community, and this was just the best opportunity to get that kind of experience. And so as I was doing a little bit more research into what the Youth Commission does, I found myself really drawn to the role of event planning because that was a role that I myself fulfilled in my friend group. And so I just wanted to take this opportunity to expand my skills. And there were so many Saratoga community events that I had enjoyed attending as a kid, and it would be so great to be able to build my own events.
Like many of my panel mates, before I joined the Youth Commission, I was very new to Saratoga, and when I learned about it, I figured out that's a way for me to have a voice in my community. I think I've met so many amazing people through this, and I'm so happy I joined, and it's one of the best things that's happened to me, and I hope everyone considers in this room maybe one day joining it too.
Thank you. We're now going to be taking audience questions. Please raise your hand and stand up while asking your question.
Hello everyone, my question is, what is your favorite accomplishment of your commission so far?
Thank you so much for asking that question. Let's have Bianca go first, followed by Reina, and then Sophie.
Great question. So I would probably say that my favorite accomplishment was the collaboration we did with the Saratoga Parks and Rec Department last year to host summer movie, or to have a booth at the summer movie nights. And so the summer movie nights, I very vividly remember I used to go with them with my dad and sister in the summer. So I was really stoked that we had this opportunity to collaborate. And so the movie choice was Wonka. And so to sort of fit with that theme, we had like a candy necklace making booth, and we also hid like golden tickets all over the park, which was actually really fun because I had to like pick spots and was like, whoa, this is a spot they're not going to find it. And so I know that like the candy necklaces and the golden ticket finding, those are all things that I would have loved to do as a kid. And so that's my favorite accomplishment.
For me, last year in the Teen Commission, we created a youth-led organization highlight program, and basically it was a place for YLOs, which are basically teen-owned businesses or nonprofits, just teen-owned organizations, for them to highlight and get the word out about whatever they're doing. So a lot of teens in this area have their own businesses and nonprofits, but normally they don't know how to get this out and make people know about it. So we offered them a chance for the Cupertino, the city Instagram, to highlight these organizations, and we had them go through an application process, and then the teen commissioners handpicked which people would get highlighted. And I feel like it was just really great for our community and teens specifically to be able to get their voice out and actually share what they're really passionate about.
So my favorite accomplishment was actually our wellness day last year that Campbell Youth Commission hosted. I loved it because it was an original idea that we came up with, and we got to plan it all the way back from booking the community center to connecting with teens on a deep personal level in a way that was super fun. We had over 85 participants and many more on the wait list, and it was an event to promote physical and mental health, which we accomplished by having booths from organizations that were willing to counsel teens if they needed help with their mental health, as well as puppies from therapy dogs, so everyone could have fun, bracelet making, plushie making, and many more like booths to help give them new opportunities, new outlets to find a way to express themselves. And then in order to promote physical health, we were able to open up the gym for a couple hours and give free weight room access to anyone who wanted it. And it was just super fun, and I loved connecting with everyone who went there.
Wow, those are great responses. Does anyone else have any questions for the commissioners?
How have your experiences on the commission enhanced your relationship with the government and your community?
Great question. What are your thoughts, Reina, Sophia, and Han?
So in my community, I normally never got a chance to actually interact with government at all because I was just like, okay, I'm a teenager, what could I actually do? But as chair last year, I was able to attend mayor's meetings, and basically that's when all of the commissions, including the teen commission, would meet with the mayor, and we would discuss what's going on in all various parts of our community. And I feel like this was really powerful, one, because I learned about all the other commissions, because I didn't know there was a housing commission or a library commission, but also the other commissions could learn about what teens are currently doing. And also our amazing mayor, Sheila Mohan, she was also able to give her input on the teen events we were having and making sure that everyone was aware of what's happening with teens.
Yeah, as a part of the Youth Commission both last year and this year, I've been able to learn so much more about city systems and exactly how much work the city puts into hosting events for us. For example, when I was presenting work plans this year, I learned that the city has to review everything, and there's just a whole process to make even small things happen. In addition, I've learned so much from planning and hosting our own events. For example, last year we interviewed the Campbell PD, and we got to give a tour and ask a couple officers questions about safety tips for an online event that we hosted. It was really helpful in positively bridging the community with the police by providing insight and just fun facts and making them seem more human almost, so that we could connect the community and the youth with the police.
Bianca, what do you think about that?
So I would say that being a youth commissioner has really helped me understand how the government puts together all these events to support community, which is obviously a really big part of their job. Expanding on that community part, there were so many community events, yearly community events that I hadn't known about previously, but they're put on yearly, and we got to since we were holding booths at these community events, we got to meet all these amazing community figures who take the time to plan these events every year and get booths to come, and I think that's really great.
Thank you so much. Those are all such excellent responses. Does anyone in the audience have any more questions?
I think one question that comes up a lot is what are the biggest problems that the teen commissions have helped to solve?
That's a great question. I really like that one. What do you think, Sophie, Reina, and Bianca? Or sorry, let's switch it up a bit. Let's go Mason, Joyce, and Sia. What do you think?
I think that the biggest problem that we helped to solve was probably mental wellness. As Sophie already explained, we had a mental wellness day, and I think that those booths that we were able to bring in provided an opportunity for teens in the community, specifically teens of Campbell, to be able to kind of just have an opportunity to talk to others, and it opened up those resources that maybe they were too afraid or just didn't have enough time to kind of go to, while also having it be a positive environment where you could share your stories, you could talk with friends, you could make plushies, you could do all those things while also kind of reflecting on your own mental wellness. And I think that that is something that we're going to continue to do in the future, and I hope that other cities such as Saratoga and Cupertino can replicate to be able to just help the teens in their community with their mental wellness, because I think that mental wellness is probably one of the most important parts of our lives today, especially with all the stress that's going on with school, homework, I think it's really important that we have those kind of resources available to everyone in the community that is free and available and just positive.
Well, as a former Cupertino Teen Commissioner, we mainly played an advisory role for both the City Council and its staff. But I would love to see the new Teen Commission work on many things related to mental health, specifically social isolation. Social isolation has been a huge issue, I believe, in our community lately, especially since it's being amplified by social media. As I'm sure many of you guys have on your phones right now, there's TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, and all of those things are being replaced by virtual connections instead of face-to-face connections that we can make. I think I would love to see the new commission work on new innovative ideas for events. That way we can hopefully solve this social isolation issue, which especially can lead to many detrimental psychological and physical health issues that can eventually be solved through more social events or even implementation of health and awareness programs.
I really agree with you, Joyce, on that. Do you want to expand a bit more on how the commission can help with mental health?
Yeah, of course. As previously stated, I think a key way that we can definitely implement this into our city agenda is definitely through new events. Currently, we do have a lot of events in the city of Cupertino geared towards teens, but I would love to see more awareness regarding mental health. And I know that the Teen Commission is doing an amazing job at this, specifically because in the summer, they had a teen resource fair which connected various teens and youth in the community with different volunteer and job opportunities, but more importantly, mental health and awareness programs.
I think like my other panelists said, I think being in Saratoga, being a Saratoga student myself, I think mental health is a really big issue because let's be honest, I think every single person in this room knows what that's like. We do so many extracurricular activities living in the Bay Area, especially. There's a lot of pressure when it comes to academics and all of that, grades, college apps, all of that. And I think one thing we look over is mental health and really taking the time to make sure that we have a break for ourselves. And I really hope as a team commission, one of our main goals this year is physical and mental wellness. And our events is kind of a time for teens, and not only teens, but everyone in the community to kind of take a break, reconnect with the community, with their friends, with their family, people they can meet new, just to kind of work on that mental and physical health, like my other panelists said. And I think that's a really important issue and a struggle that we struggle with as a whole community in the Bay Area especially.
Wow, that was really great insight. I learned so much. Does anyone else in the audience want to share their insight and ask a question to our fellow youth commissioners?
I have a question. Which goals would you like to accomplish in the future?
I really appreciate you asking that question. Can we have Mason, Joyce, and Sia share their thoughts on that?
I think for the future, I would say that one of our main goals would probably be get more teens involved in just the government process. A lot of people don't know how much effort, how much work, or just the basic system of how our government works on the city level. And I think it would be really opening if we had some kind of like coffee or something like that to be for teens to be able, or anyone to just be able to talk to an elected official and to kind of be able to have a better grasp, understanding of our government process, so that they are just more educated on what goes on behind the scene, what goes on behind the scenes of our city. Yeah.
Some goals that I would love to see the current Teen Commission accomplish is definitely representing the youth more. And I think that this can be achieved by having more events geared towards the youth. And additionally, I feel like having the youth come over and be a part of more city things can be extremely beneficial. For example, like Reina Shah said previously, we do have a youth-led organization recognition program which helps highlight and recognize youths in the community. And most recently, I know that our specifically for Cupertino itself, we have actually launched a new program to recognize teens, which is called the Recreational Event Volunteer Program. And I would love to see this group get more highlight and be amplified more in the community, because I believe it is just a great and amazing way for youth in our community to get involved. Like, volunteering may seem like, oh, it's just for college apps, oh, it's just, to have something to write down. But honestly, volunteering can be such like a meaningful, and it's like as simple as just showing up, putting in effort into it. And I think volunteering is just an easy way to get all the youth involved, and I would love to see that goal implemented.
Thank you so much. We are now coming close to the end of the section tonight. This will be your last question and your closing statement. Mason, Joyce, and Sia, would you recommend being a teen commissioner to others?
Personally, I would absolutely recommend being a teen commissioner. Just the community that you're able to be a part of, the work you're able to do is really meaningful and helpful to the community. And I feel like there's not enough people that are out there that want to take those kinds of steps. So I think it would be really beneficial to everyone, not just Campbell, but everyone, if people took that opportunity to be a teen commissioner and to be able to just represent your demographic, the teens in the area that are often unrepresented in government. And it's a way to kind of put your community's voice forward that in a way that's meaningful and impactful.
As my other panelists also said, I also agree with that. I definitely would recommend being a teen commissioner. Going into it, something I didn't realize that I would take out of this is actually gaining a wide range of extremely important people who are now who I can call my friends, who used to be my peers. And also extremely important mentors who helped recognize the strengths I had and other things I need to work on. So being in the Teen Commission helped me grow not only as like a leader, but also as a person. And I do realize that maybe being a teen commissioner isn't for everyone. And I would say that there's definitely so many more opportunities that you can take. For example, like joining clubs. And honestly, all of you guys here today, like you already took that step. You're here spending your Thursday evening at a city event, and I think that shows a lot of dedication already. So if you're willing to become a teen commissioner, definitely go for it. But if that's not your jam, I think you guys are doing an amazing job, and there's just so many opportunities out there if you just try.
I absolutely think that the Youth Commission was such an amazing opportunity, and I'm so thankful for it every day. I think we meet people I know they're in your community, but they're people from all different backgrounds, all different schools, and we're all so different from each other. But when you come together in that one room and you talk, there's just so many different ideas, so many different like people and like viewpoints you get from different cultures, from different places. And I think that all comes together because getting your community involved, and it's such a unique opportunity that you really don't get. And I really think there's a spot for everyone on there, extrovert, introvert. If you're good at public speaking, if you're bad at public speaking, it really opens you up. And I really recommend it for everyone. There's stuff in the Youth Commission that I will take for the rest of my life and things that I have learned that are just priceless. And I really recommend every single person who's here, like you get to make amazing events like this, like Pizza and Politics, which teaches youth more about politics, which especially during this season with all the voting going along is so important for awareness. And I really, really recommend it and hope you guys think about that too.
How about you, Sophie? What do you think?
I just wanted to add, I know a lot of the commissioners talked about meeting new people and forming so many connections, but I also wanted to say that you learn so many new skills. Like I've met with the mayor, I've done a lot of speeches, and it's definitely helped me with my social networking skills and my public speaking skills. And I think all of this will definitely help me in the corporate world and just in adult life in general.
All right, thank you panelists for your responses, and thank you to all our youth and teen commissioners for joining us this evening. We will now take a short break and return at 7:55 p.m. for our next segment, the Teen Debate. Thank you.
Worried your friend's struggling but don't know how to reach out?
You could say how are you or get a fake tattoo. You could ask with an app if it works for you. You could write him a text or knit him a sweater. If you can't be together, you could write him a letter.
Whatever gets you talking. Whatever gets you talking.
You could chat on the game, kick off your flip-flops. You could ask on your couch while you binge watch. However you do it, you gotta ask a friend. And if they don't share, you can ask again.
Whatever gets you talking. Whatever gets you talking.
There are a lot of ways to reach out to a friend about their mental health. Learn how you can help at seizetheawkward.org.
This is where you rise, this is where you shine, this is where you become the greatest of all time. History in the making. This is history in the making. History in the making.
Vote for your life.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back for the Teen Debate. In this public forum style debate, both sides will be stating their stance on the topic and will be refuting each other's claims. We will begin this with speakers from each team making their case on each side for 3 minutes, followed by a 2-minute crossfire round. Then each side will have the opportunity to present their rebuttals for 4 minutes each. And then we will be moving into another crossfire for 2 minutes. Lastly, each side will get a chance to give their summaries and closing statements for 2 minutes each. Tonight, the teams will be debating whether or not the Californian government should pass SB 54, banning single-use plastics. Both debate teams have students invited by the cities of Campbell and Saratoga. On the affirmative side tonight, we have Aaron Chen and Aiden Chu. And on the negative side are Sanyukta Ravishankar and Richard Chen. Our judges for tonight are members of local high schools. The judges are Wendy Yu, Zara Fugman, and Preksha Jain. They will judge the debate based on the quality of the arguments, on presentation, and how convincing each team is on accepting or not accepting tonight's resolution. Each debater will receive a copy of the debate ballot by email. We will begin the debate shortly. Speakers, please introduce yourself to the audience.
I'm Aaron Chen, and I'll be the first affirmative speaker.
I'm Aiden Chu, and I'll be the second affirmative speaker.
I'm Richard Chen. Is it on? I'm Richard Chen. I'll be first speaker for negative.
And I'm Sanyukta Ravishankar, and I'm the second speaker for the negative.
We will begin the debate with the affirmative. Speaker 1, please begin your opening statement once we leave the stage.
My partner and I affirm the resolution. The California government should pass SB 54, banning single-use plastics. But what does it mean to ban single-use plastics, according to SB 54? The SB 54 law requires producers to ensure that by 2032, 100% of single-use plastics sold in California to be recyclable or compostable, 65% of single-use plastics is recycled, and 25% less single-use plastics are sold. Thus, no, the plan does not result in no more single-use plastics being used by small businesses or medical workers. Our value criteria, or how the debate should be judged, is net benefit. That is, passing our plan has a net benefit on society. Our first contention is environmental harms. The vast majority of plastic is never recycled and continues to pollute the environment. According to Whiteman from CNN Business in 2023, the world is producing a record amount of single-use plastic waste. The world generated 139 million metric tons of single-use plastic waste in 2021, which was 6 million metric tons more than in 2019. According to a study from Stat Advances, approximately 6,300 megatons of plastic waste has been generated, around 9% of which had been recycled. If current trends would continue, more than 12,000 more megatons will be in the natural environment by 2050. Contention 2 is that SB 54 is a bipartisan law. SB 54 is bipartisan. 58 Democrats and 8 Republicans voted yes for the plan, with the only 2 dissenting votes coming from Democrats. Even in California, a historically liberal state, every single Republican in attendance voted yes for this plan. A vast majority of Americans support this ban. According to Ipsos, a new public opinion survey shows broad bipartisan support. 7 in 10 Americans say that elected officials should support plastic pollution, reduce plastic pollution, including 82% of Democrats and 67% of Republican voters. In such a divisive time, in such a divisive election, who are we to stop a bipartisan effort? Instead of stopping, we should be doing everything we can to promote unity, which this plan does. Additionally, California is a role model for the whole rest of the country. According to a Princeton study, no state in the United States has exercised its discretion over environmental regulation as extensively as California, nor has any state has had as much impact on the environmental regulations of the federal government as well as in other states, which is labeled the California effect. As California goes, so does the nation. In summary, my partner once again affirmed the resolution. Again, the SB 54 does not ban single-use plastics the way most people think about it. Instead, 100% of single-use plastics will be recyclable, and that 65% will be recycled, which is up from the current 9% in the status quo, which also helps environments. Thus, we strongly urge an affirmative ballot. Thank you.
I'll now be giving the constructive. I'll now be giving the constructive for the negative. Time starts on my first word. While a full plastic ban seems like the only effective method to curb the rising threat of climate change, the reality is that implementing a full immediate ban in California would have dire long-term effects. We argue that the California government should not ban single-use plastics. Our first contention is medical contamination. Single-use plastics are necessary for maintaining sterility and medical and scientific testing. Harvey 18 writes that equipment necessary for a single blood test is nearly all plastic: gloves, syringes, and vials, all of which are single-use to control contamination and infection. Single-use plastics are the cleanest, most efficient way to facilitate health and hygiene in hospitals. A plastic ban would remove these vital tools and materials from the hospital environment, which would make it impossible to conduct safe procedures. As Cookie 19 quantifies, a single abdominal hysterectomy generates 9.2 kilograms of waste, half of which come from single-use plastics. Hospitals couldn't function without them. Picture during COVID-19 without single-use face masks being widely available or effective. In fact, Mandavilli of New York Times quoted the CDC in saying that reusable cloth masks do not provide the same level of protection as single-use masks, which contain plastics. Thus, single-use plastics are essential to prevent the spread of disease, in which case banning them would create inefficiencies and expenses in our systems, which will make it impossible to combat rapidly in the short term. Our second contention is thicker plastics. According to World Count 24, 5 trillion plastic bags are consumed every year. That's 160,000 bags a second. Worse, Kamarglen 24 adds that each bag is typically only used for 12 minutes before being discarded. Recently, New Jersey implemented a bag ban. The goal was to convert from single-use plastics to reusable bags. However, the plastic bag ban inversely led to increased plastic consumption. The issue was that the thickness of the bag was increased in order for them to be counted as reusable, but customers used the bags as only as much as they previously used their single-use counterparts. Fredonia 24 quantifies that the shift to thicker plastics resulted in nearly a 3 times increase in plastic consumption. 6 times more polypropylene was consumed to produce the reusable bags. Notably, NWPP, the dominant alternative bag material, consumes over 15 times more plastic during product per bag. Already, the same is happening with bag bans in California, where Sokolow in 24 found that single-use plastic bag bans allowed the use of thicker plastics, leading to the amount of plastic discarded per person by weight to increase to the highest level on record. Unfortunately, Hunt in 23 writes that a heavy-duty plastic bag has double the environmental impact. A study found that thick polypropylene bag must be used for an estimated 10 to 20 times to outweigh the use of a single-use plastic bag. Increased plastic consumption will be devastating to human health. As Damianos 23 writes, it's estimated that humans can inhale up to 20 million micro and nanoplastics annually. These microplastics are vectors for toxins and pathogens to circulate within the body. Studies on the inhalation of microplastics show effects like respiratory illnesses, cancer, and ties with the global spread of lung disease, which accounts for over 212 million cases and 3 million deaths annually. Thus, we strongly urge you to negate.
Do you mind if we have the first question?
Sure, you can.
So, for your plan, the harm from the thicker plastics, those come from reusable plastics, correct?
Yeah, so
reusable plastics?
Yeah, so producers, they make them thicker and they claim, so
Okay.
it fits like the reusable criteria.
But does SB 54 require new reusable plastics?
No, it bans single-use plastics,
The language-
which have like a width requirement.
If the language of SB 54 just says that single-use plastics must be recyclable, how does that apply to reusable plastics, as your evidence suggests?
Yeah, so the point is when producers make it thicker, it makes
But
it so
that applies to only reusables, correct, as you stated before?
Wait, can you repeat the question?
Your evidence on thicker plastics, you said that was according to reusable plastics, correct?
What does that mean? We're saying that it's not really reusable. It's just that consumers and the producers, they claim it's reusable to fit the criteria.
But how would that apply to SB 54? It's SB 54 doesn't require reusable, but only that the current ones have to be more recyclable, and that it has to be now 65% of them are recycled instead of 9%.
Yeah, exactly.
How does the reusable apply?
Yeah, so these producers of these plastics, they're gonna claim that this thing is recyclable. But what you see in consumer behavior is that they actually don't use these plastics 10 to 20 times before discarding. They use it a lot. They don't use it as much. Can I take a question?
Yes.
On your second contention, like bipartisan support, what's the impact off of this?
The impact of bipartisan support is that it doesn't create a more divisive time in America. Additionally, bipartisan support proves that across America, this plan, Americans will follow California's model, which brings environmental benefits to the rest of the
So
country.
like a single law
That's
in
time.
California would make everyone like support each other more across the United States?
It's time. 2 minutes.
All right, I'm ready to give the second affirmative speech. All right, my time will start on my first word. So it is important to remember that the SB 54 plan only accounts for recycling. I'll restate it again. SB 54 law requires producers to ensure that by 2032, 100% of single-use plastics sold in California to be recyclable or compostable. 65% of single-use plastics is recycled, and 25% less single-use plastics are sold. This does nothing to entail that medical use will be limited or that the production of safe and sterile equipment will not be permitted. It is only saying that in this new status quo that plastics need to be managed more and they need to be recycled and they need to be made from other recycled plastics and they need to be recyclable and compostable. So that eliminates basically the full impact and the effects of the negative team's first contention, which is that banning plastics will create a bad status quo for the medical facility and for science. This does nothing to ban the use of single plastics in medicine, but in fact creates the precedent that they should use plastics, but it just needs to be recyclable and it needs to be sustainable for the environment. So that counteracts their first claim. Second, I would like to discuss the negative team's thicker plastic contention. I think the negative team is having a severe misunderstanding of what the plan SB 54 requires. True that if there is a complete ban of single-use plastics in general, other people will go to reusable plastics such as these thicker plastics that can make more plastic waste. But the thing is that this plan is not to ban them, just to replace them with a more sustainable version and to put in laws and limitations that make sure that we can reduce our plastic waste and improve our management of our plastic waste to prevent environmental harms and the harms that they have stated in their evidence. It does not necessarily mean that people are going to switch to thicker plastics, just need to use the same plastics, just that they are recyclable. So it does nothing to promote the use of thicker plastic bags. And thus, their contention on thicker plastics is mute. I would also once again like to emphasize that California is a leader inside of the US, and with our bipartisan evidence, what California does sets an example and sets a precedent for other states within the US to follow suit in a more environmentally friendly fashion, that they will also perhaps take on more sustainable actions, such as we said from our Princeton evidence in 2023, that, in our Princeton evidence in 2023, the United States is a federal system in which states play an important role in shaping policy. No state in the United States has exercised its discretion over environmental regulations as extensively as California, or has as much impact on environmental regulations of the federal government as any other state, and this has been labeled the California effect. As California goes, the rest of the nation will follow suit. By passing this plan, it not only promotes bipartisan unity, which is so essential in this state of disunity in our nation, but it will also help promote better sustainable actions across the state. Thus, because of this, and also I would like to once again mention that we both agree that plastics are an issue. Both the negative and the affirmative have agreed that single-use plastics, plastic waste, and microplastics have negative effects. Thus, because of the contentions of the environmental harms and because of bipartisaness and the leadership position of California, I would like to strongly affirm an affirmative ballot.
Okay, so I'll be giving the rebuttal from the negative. Just for your reference, I'll start off on our case, then go on to my opponent's case. Starting off on our first contention, they read this definition, which tells you that SB 54 is focused on the recyclability of plastics. However, what the resolution specifies is the banning of single-use plastics. While the bill itself focuses on recyclability, remember that there's a second part of the bill which focuses on the 25% reduction in single-use plastic packaging. That's what we're going to be debating about in today's debate. Now, on our second contention on thicker plastic, they have a couple of responses. First of all, they just say that we're not going to ban single-use plastics. Instead, we're going to convert over to recyclable materials. However, what we specify is whenever there's an immediate ban, producers struggle to find a sustainable alternative to the plastic materials that we so frequently use in everyday life. The issue, historically in New Jersey, in California, whenever we've had a single-use plastic bag ban, producers have just moved towards creating more thicker and reusable plastic bags. However, these same plastic bags are being used at the same rate as the initial plastic bags, leading to overconsumption of plastic and an increase in the plastic waste overall of our nation. Now, they try to bring in this whole analogy where anything that California will do will be modeled across the entire nation. While this may be true, emphasize that the fact that historically when California passed a plastic bag ban, this led to more environmental harm. If the rest of the nation were to implement a bill that would do more harm to our country, this would lead to an overall worsened environmental impact. Thus, it's important that we take a laser focus to SB 54 and make sure it's actually doing good for our environment. Now, onto their case, we have a couple of responses. First of all, they tell you that their value criterion is net benefit. However, we urge you to not evaluate on the net benefit because otherwise the affirmative can justify any amount of harm as long as there is some benefit. What we emphasize is taking a closer look at the harm, looking at the consequences of the action, and making sure that those aren't the reason why we're failing in the rest of the world. Now, anything and everything we do at this stage is going to matter on the big stage. Now, on their first contention of environmental harms, we have a couple of responses. First off, we tell you alternatives to plastic are actually worse for climate change. According to America's plastic makers, plastic packaging uses 50% less energy than alternatives, which helps cut greenhouse gas emissions in half. Plastic produces 80% less solid waste by weight. Thus, we need to maintain the consistency in that retaining some amount of single-use plastic packaging is necessary to preventing contamination that we mentioned on our case. Now, on top of that, we cannot make the issue worse on the path to solving it. Remember our second contention on thicker plastic. We tell you that instead of actually solving for plastic, you're expanding the issue. On their second contention on bipartisan law, we give you a couple of responses. First off, it's necessary to stop negative bipartisan laws before they are set to have the negative impact. Because if we successfully pass this failing bipartisan law, that's going to lead to more distrust in our government and actually less unity when we go forward and make bigger decisions in the future. It's essential that we make a focus on what we're implementing right now so that we don't make worse decisions in the future. But second, we urge you to realize that people vote off of domestic issues, including the cost of food, gas, and convenience. Replacing plastic in these products will cost them even more. According to Rogers 22, rising prices are crippling. The two Democrat-only bills seek to ban new plastics manufacturing and certain single-use plastic products. These will worsen the supply chain crisis and hurt economic development across the country. What voters are focused on is at the cost that these new reusable plastics are going to take. However, what we urge you to realize is that in the long term, voters will actually see the negative impact of this quick ban that they're trying to implement. Thus, we urge you to focus on the long-term impact of plastics over the short-term ban and negate. I'm good for cross. You can take the first question.
Okay. So could I get some clarification on how you say that thicker plastics will promote, or how the single ban will promote single plastics?
Yeah, so The issue is that historically in New Jersey and in California, when there was a single-use plastic bag ban, that just led to more recyclable or reusable plastic bags. Now, if you walk into a grocery store, you can still buy a plastic bag. It's reusable. But the issue was people kept using these reusable plastic bags as much as they used the initial plastic bags, which was for a very short amount of time, only 12 minutes, as we tell you in our case. Can I take a question?
Yeah.
How widely implemented are alternatives to plastic in the status quo?
Alternatives to plastic?
Yeah.
I don't believe we have any evidence for the alternatives to plastic, but the plan is that we're just going to it's just converting more plastics to recyclable plastics instead of the now status quo single-use plastics. So alternatives should not be topical to this.
Okay, a quick follow-up. In what case, what is the cost of the recyclable plastic program that you're planning to implement?
I don't believe I do not have any current evidence or any evidence I've stated that are about the cost, but there are already recycling systems in place, and the environmental harms that are caused by single-use plastics are far more, as you stated in your own evidence.
Well, here's the thing. We hear about climate change every day, and we're seeing the impacts as well. So why hasn't this prompted consumers to reduce their spending on plastic products yet?
Well, it's like you stated in your previous evidence yourself that plastics are such an essential part of society that we cannot live without it. All we can do is to manage it.
So wouldn't it be problematic in that immediately removing this source of plastic would leave consumers desperate for all alternative solutions, thus leading to more cost to the economy as these solutions haven't been fully developed yet?
I think there's a misunderstanding. We are not removing plastics or like the source of them or the root of them.
I mean, the resolution specifies banning single-use plastics. That's
25% less. Yeah, but that's time.
My time will begin on my first word. Unfortunately, the negative team is severely mistaken on what SB 54 is. The resolution says a plastic ban. The plastic ban is actually defined in the language of SB 54, which says that number one, 100% of single-use plastics sold in California to be recyclable or compostable, 65% of single-use plastics to be recycled, and 25% less single-use plastics are sold, all by 2032, or in the case of the context, in 10 years. Unfortunately, the negative team is severely mistaken. If you hear the language, it says a single-use ban, or as I said in Crossfire, removing plastics from the economy. There's no such thing as a ban or removing in the language of S54. It says it is on the producers, not the government, for the producers to create new types of plastic to follow along with this law. Single-use plastics will still exist and will still be consumed. The difference between the status quo and SC54 is that in the status quo, only 9% of plastics are being recycled. In the SC54, 65% of plastics will be recycled over a 10-year period. All of the negative team's evidence applies to the status quo where single-use plastics are completely banned. Additionally, California has passed environmental regulations that were copied by other states. This is not an analogy. As our evidence says, other California's laws, such as clean air laws, were adopted and followed by other states. Finally, this bill has already been passed. In June of 2022, the California legislature voted 66-2 on this plan, with 58 Democrats and 8 Republicans. While the negative may present different types of attacks, different types of arguments, this law has already been vetted by real professionals, real politicians, real people voting on real domestic issues, and real economists. Even real opponents supported this plan, as shown by the 8 Republican voted yes. Thus, because of all of our stock issues, we strongly affirm an affirmative ballot. Thank you.
Time begins on my first word. At the end of the debate, it comes down to whether we should ban single-use plastics now or later. We tell you that right now we're unprepared because we don't have the alternatives developed yet. So we must ban the single-use plastics later. First, they concede the turn on their case. We tell you that voters actually care more about domestic issues rather than some plastic ban that doesn't and like environmental impacts that don't really affect them. If you ban plastics, that leads to the increase of food prices and prices like all around the United States, because the supply chain is extremely reliant on the like the cheapness and affordability of single-use plastics. So then these people will have even less trust in the government after the ban, because they will see that the cost of food, gas, and convenience going up. Then the second thing they're losing is that when you ban single-use plastics, it leads to medical equipment being banned, because the part of the bill also includes a 25% reduction in single-use plastics, and you can extend our card that tells you that hospitals require huge amounts of plastics to keep a sterile environment to make operations like surgeries and blood tests possible. That means that if banning plastics now with the world unprepared and having no alternatives will be detrimental, because it will lead to the spread of disease around the country. Then they are also losing thicker plastics. We tell you that when you try to make these plastics recyclable, that only causes producers to make the plastics thicker. And we see this empirically with plastic bans in California already. And we're the only team that gives you empirics of plastic ban in California actually failing, because we're not prepared with the alternatives developed yet. That means we turn all of their environmental impacts to our side, because it only gets worse in their world because of more plastic consumption worldwide. Thus, we urge you to negate. Good round, guys.
Good round. That's a good debate. Good debate. Thank you.
Wow, I personally learned a lot from this debate, and I hope you all did too. Thank you to Aaron, Aiden, Sanyukta, and Richard for such a riveting debate. We will be taking a brief 2-minute break for our judges to finalize their ballots, so please don't go too far. When we return, we will announce the winners for this year's debate. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations to all 4 debaters for presenting such strong arguments on our topic today. With sustainability being one of our most pressing issues, it is inspiring to see teenagers like you research such topics and weigh the pros and cons of possible governmental solutions together. Both sides did an amazing job finding their own cases, as well as refuting the opponents, encompassing the true values for public forum debate holds for societal topics like today's. Without further ado, we would like to announce that the negative side has won the teen debate segment of the 2024's Pizza and Politics. But once again, both teams did an exceptional job. Let's give a round of applause to all our debaters.
This concludes 2024's Pizza and Politics event. We want to thank you all for coming, and the cities of Cupertino, Saratoga, and Campbell for hosting this awesome event. We look forward to seeing you all at coming Youth Commission events. Thank you.
Thank you all.